The Rangers bullpen was mostly good last year, but almost everybody's leaving. On today's show, we're talking about which free agent should stay, which free agent should go in this bullpen, and more. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about this bullpen, which free agents from the Rangers should they bring back? Which ones are we fine with letting them walk? And we're going to talk very briefly about some injury news with the Rangers' top prospect, one game into his Arizona Fall League tenure. Before we get into all that, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, I want to start with the newsy news first before we get into this bullpen. The Rangers announced yesterday on Tuesday that Sebastian Walcott, his time in the Arizona Fall League, is going to come to an early end. He was injured after just one game played. Now, I was a little surprised that Arizona Fall League saw Sebastian Walcott, because Walcott was not hurt at all this year. And to say hurt, this is an odd injury. It's an injury, but they're saying that he is dealing with arm fatigue as a shortstop. I don't know that I've ever seen that one before. That's a new one. Now, elbow sprain, sure. Shoulder strain, sure. I've seen that, but just fatigue in his arm, and that's gonna do it. That's gonna do it for this 20 plus 2-week, 3-week stretch of Arizona Fall League games, however much it's going to be. He played one game last week on Tuesday, the opening game. He hit second. He played shortstop. He had a couple of hits, including a double in that game, and looked fine. But that was it. Went 2 for 4 with a walk and a strikeout, a couple of runs scored. One of those hits was a single, one of them was a double, and that was all she wrote for Sebastian Walcott. I guess they decided that him playing DH only wasn't worth it, which I guess makes sense. But I thought part of the reason you usually send guys to the Arizona Fall League was for them to get a few more reps, a few more a better look at them, which is surprising because usually it's for guys who either missed part of the season with injury, that you want to get them more innings to kind of get that workload up for pitchers, or there were a couple of hitters, they didn't get quite enough plate appearances, or you want to get an extra look at them. Guys, you're just like, I need to see just a little bit more, because it's only 8 or so prospects from the Rangers that are on this team. It is comprised of multiple different teams. There's only 4 to 6, I think, teams in the Arizona Fall League in general. So you only send a few guys you really want to get that extra look at. But Walcott played a full season. He had 552 plate appearances. That is more than a full season of work for a 19-year-old in AA. Ended his season on a strong note, had some highs, had some lows, learned how to work out of slumps. That was a great thing. The defense was at times really good, at times problematic. Got charged with quite a few errors this year. I think it was just the consistency. Maybe they were trying to get him some extra work with those infield coaches at the Arizona Fall League. But either way, he is done. I'm not worried about it being any kind of long-term thing. It's just a bummer that we don't get to see that little bit much more of Sebastian Walcott. I'll talk more about the Fall League as things are happening, but let's get into the main topic of today, this bullpen. On yesterday's show, I talked about the internal free agents in the rotation, because the Rangers, these are the 2 categories of internal free agents that they have. They have starting pitchers, they have relievers. That's it. Unless by some weird turn of things, Jock Peterson says, you know what, I'm going to decline that $18.5 million player option for next year and become a free agent. If that's the case, and that's the only free agent hitter that the Rangers will have, unless they decide to, non-tender some of these guys that are up for arbitration, be that Adolis Garcia or Jonah Heim or I don't know. I don't think anybody else would be a candidate for that. But let's look at these relievers. What does this bullpen look like if the Rangers don't sign anybody? Now, I don't think there's a scenario where Chris Young doesn't sign any reliever, but let's just take the hypothetical to see where we're working from at the baseline. Coming back, Robert Garcia, Cole Winn, Jacob Webb, I'm pretty sure, according to Spot Track, he was a guy, when he was signed, it was just said as a 1-year contract. Now, I think he still has arbitration rights, so he could be earning around $2.5 million-ish next year in arbitration. If that is the case, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. I have researched this, and I am pretty darn sure. Now, they also have Luis Crivello coming back, and then Josh Sborz still has another year under contract. We'll see what, if anything, that looks like. I say what, if anything, because he was still hitting 91 in his final rehab appearances after missing the entire season after getting shoulder surgery last year. Last year, in 2024, he had shoulder surgery and was rehabbing for the entire year. Had some rehab outings in Round Rock and Frisco and just did not light up the radar gun the way Josh Sborz kind of needs to be a part of this bullpen, especially a big part in the back end. Now, there's also a possibility we see Jacob Latz in this bullpen. I would much rather see him in this rotation because I loved what I saw from him as a starting pitcher last year. But the workload, who knows if he's going to stick in the rotation for the full season and how many starts the Rangers could get out of him. So he's a possibility, as is Emiliano Teodo, who is on the 40-man roster, who is also in the Arizona Fall League. He has only pitched in one game. Hopefully he is not going to be shut down with arm fatigue because that would be a big problem. Missed a lot of time this year, but he runs his fastball all the way up to 102. I believe 103 is what he has maxed out at with a nasty, nasty breaking ball. I hope to see him in the big leagues this year, getting leverage outs, being the Rangers' homegrown closer, the first one they've had really since Jose Leclerc had a stretch in October and, Neftali Feliz back in the day. But then there's also Jose Corniel, who made his big league debut and looked good for the first couple innings before he was thrown to the Wolves in extra innings. There's Winston Santos, who is on the 40-man roster. I think he might end up sticking as a starter. I just more of a believer in him as a nasty, baller back end reliever. I think that is just a little bit more where his skill set will thrive because I don't trust the, third or fourth pitch that he's got in his arsenal quite as much as I trust the fastball and the slider being nasty 2-pitch closer. I would love to see that as an outcome for Winston Santos. And then, of course, the Rangers could bring back their two-way star, the only reliever to not give up, actually, one of two relievers to not give up a single earned run last year. The other was Carl Edwards Jr. in 2 outings. And then in 4 outings, 3 1/3 innings, 4 games finished, the real closer, Ezekiel Duran. Now, I don't know if we'll be seeing Zeke Duran pitch much next year. Maybe we will. If the Rangers need a position player to pitch, it's probably going to be Zeke Duran because he was effective last year in his bits of work. But basically where the Rangers are right now, also Mark Church is there. I didn't really mention him because I don't know what to make of Mark Church's season last year. Came out of camp and I thought, oh yeah, this guy is going to be the closer by May. Nope, that was not the case. That was very much not the case. Dealt with a lot of injuries and ineffectiveness last year. I'm still a believer in Church long term, but as for next year and the immediate impact, I'm not really sure what to make of it, which is kind of a theme with relievers. You never really quite know what you're going to get. It's like that box of chocolates that Forrest Gump talked about, except the only one who does really know what he's going to get, at least it seemed like it last year, was Chris Young. The last 2 years, he's had to rebuild the bullpen from scratch, and he's going to basically have to do it again this year. I'd say he needs to sign at least 3, probably 4 relievers, which is a vast majority of your pen. Of these guys on this roster that I trust in leverage spots, Garcia, but not as a closer. Really don't trust him as a closer. Cole Winn, I trust him in leverage spots. I think he's going to be a big part of this pen next year. And that's one fewer reliever you're going to have to sign. Jacob Webb was fine last year. I trust him as more of a your best B-side reliever. Luis Crivello, I don't know how much I trust him in leverage spots. He had some moments where he looked great, some moments where he looked like a rookie because he was a rookie, but there's definitely some stuff there and some velocity, which is something that this pen was deeply lacking. So I think the Rangers need 3, maybe 4 relievers, and it's a good thing because they've got a lot of guys that are free agents this year. I'm going to talk about what's the good in these guys, what's the bad with these guys. Do the Rangers want them back? Do they probably want to be back? And of course, most importantly, do I want them back? Whatever that is worth. Talk about all that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it all takes the fun out of it. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, it's easy, and it's backed by the Gametime guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I was able to check out quite a few baseball games this year thanks to our friends at Gametime. It was so easy. It was so fast. I got great deals on tickets to see Rough Riders games, to see Rangers games. I got a concert that I'm looking at going to here in the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to get those tickets with Gametime because it is the best way I have ever found to get tickets to any live event you're looking to go to. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Shout out that every day is bringing Locked On Ranger first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, we'll be back and talking about Corey Seager's season, what to make of it, how good was it, and is it time to start worrying about the durability of the Rangers' star shortstop? Talk about that and more on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Rangers. Now, let's start with the man who pitched the second most games for the Rangers last year. I was about to say the most. That was the most is Hoby Milner. We'll get to him in a second. But I want to start with the guy who finished the season as, at least for me, the Rangers' most trusted reliever. That is Shawn Armstrong. What a year for Shawn Armstrong. Maybe the best season of Shawn's career. Finishes the year with a 2.31 ERA. Now, 2023 might have been a little bit better, but it was a smaller sample size. That year, he had just shy of 40 games at a 1.38 ERA. That's the only other year that's like really even close to what Armstrong did this year. Finishes tied for the team lead with 9 saves. And you look at the Baseball Savant page, and it's not the most read, but it is very read in terms of the expected ERA, the expected batting average, the hard hit rate. He was not hit hard. The good about Shawn Armstrong is that, man, that four-seam fastball is really good. It is not a lot. There's not a lot of velocity behind it in terms of, 93.5 miles an hour. That's not, primo gas back there. But in terms of limiting runs, limiting hard contact, he did a great job in that. I mean, he was such a lockdown guy for the Rangers at the end of last year. He had a couple of bad outings in the save department that kind of make his numbers look a little bit worse in the leverage spots than you might think. But the overall numbers look like. And that's why I think the Rangers didn't trust him in that closer's role for the majority of the season. He had one game that he really blew it against the Houston Astros early on in this season. But, basically since then, he has been fantastic. I mean, he was great out of the starting role. The couple of times that he was an opener, he had 3 scoreless innings. The first time he did it, the second time, not quite as much, gave up a walk and a homer. But in his 2 starts, 4 innings, 6 strikeouts. Those only 2 base runners did end up coming to score. But this was a guy who the Rangers desperately needed. In August, he was the Rangers player of the month because he had a .82 ERA. Every other month, he was below 3, except for May when he had that one disastrous outing. But you look at April and March, 12 games there, a 2.77 ERA. In 12 games in June, he had a 2.08 ERA, exact same ERA in 13 games in July. 0.82 ERA in August, 1.29 ERA in the month of September and October. I mean, you look at what he did in the second half. He had a 1.13 ERA in the second half, exactly a strikeout per inning, did a good job of limiting walks. But the bad part about him is he is the same thing that I just mentioned, is he does not have premium gas, premium velocity, and that's usually what you want out of a closer. I would still trust him if the Rangers decide to sign him to be their closer next year, albeit a little bit begrudgingly. He might get a little more expensive than he was this year. The Rangers got him on an incredible discount. I mean, he made $1.25 million this year. $1.25 million for a 2.3 ERA in 72 games. That is fantastic value by Chris Young. I mean, absolutely fantastic bang for your buck. No better reliever deal out there, I don't think, unless there's some elite reliever that's on the minimum. Even then, I think it's pretty darn close to Shawn Armstrong being the most valuable win per dollar reliever out there on the market. And that was a great thing. Do the Rangers want him back? I think absolutely. It depends on the dollar value. He's going to be 35 years old next year, just turned 35 here very recently. Does he want to come back? I would imagine so. With the success that he had with this Rangers pitching apparatus, I wouldn't imagine there's a world where he's like, yeah, I don't want to come back at all. I think it comes down to the dollar amount. What exactly that is, I'm not entirely sure. Spotrac has him projected for about a $4 million deal. That is a significant pay increase for a guy who would be a very solid, if this is your 8th inning guy, if this is your 7th inning guy, if this is your second best reliever, if this is your best reliever, if he does anywhere close to what he did last year, if the Rangers think he can repeat it, I'd say yes, bring him back. So it kind of, for me, it depends. I think $4 million might be even lowballing it. He might get somewhere in the $7 to maybe even $10 million range. I mean, you have a season like that, teams are going to want you. And I think that is absolutely going to be the case with Shawn Armstrong. Even though he only throws 93.5 miles an hour, this guy is incredibly effective. The properties on that fastball are elite. That cutter is fantastic paired off of that. And then the sweeper and the sinker too. I mean, he is a 3 different types of fastball pitcher with one breaking ball. That's a sweeper. That's pretty effective, but it really all comes down to that 4-seam fastball. I think he should come back. It depends if he gets more than $8-10 million. I think the Rangers say, I think we can find better value elsewhere. Happy trails. Thank you for your service. But I'm leaning towards, yes, bring him back. Now, this is a trend with the Rangers bullpen of not having elite velocity and being a little bit on the older side. And we're going to talk about the next guy that also doesn't have that much velocity, a guy who the Rangers traded for mid-season, one of the 2 that they traded for mid-season. That is Danny Coulombe. Now, Danny Coulombe was a guy who I wanted the Rangers to sign this offseason. I thought, hey, this would be a great deal for Texas. I did not know why he ended up just on the Twins, and nobody was really kicking the tires that much. I mean, he got $2.3 million last year, and he was fantastic. I mean, he was truly fantastic. He was a little bit better for the Twins than he was with the Rangers. 40 games with the Twins, 31 innings, exactly 31 strikeouts, and a 1.16 ERA. And in 15 games with the Rangers, a couple of really bad blow-up outings make these numbers look a lot worse than it ended up being. Also a stint on the IL after he came back made the numbers, the sample size smaller, but 12 innings, 7 earned runs, a 5.25 ERA. Now, I believe 4 or 5 of those earned runs all came in 1 or 2 of his outings. But again, when you only have 15 outings and you have 2 stinkers, it really explodes those numbers. Now, what I love about Danny Coulombe is even though he doesn't throw hard, I do love that he is a Red Raider. Shout out Texas Tech. But finishing the year with a 2.3 ERA. I mean, the average exit velocity, he does an incredible job of limiting that. He gets an exceptional amount of chase. He is good against righties. He is good against lefties. The expected numbers in terms of the ERA and the batting average, they're a lot higher than the actual batting average was. Does get himself into trouble with walks, which is not something I love to see for a reliever, but it's kind of usually why a lot of guys end up in the pen. But the barrel rate, I mean, that's in the top 10% of baseball if he was among qualifiers. the chase rate would be, I believe, the number one chase rate in all of baseball had he got enough innings to be amongst the qualifiers. But this is a guy who I don't think he's going to earn a whole lot of money next year. I mean, Spotrac has his projected value a little bit higher than Shawn Armstrong, which I feel is bonkers. He's going to be a year older than Shawn Armstrong. He is left-handed, but he's projected to make $4.3 million, where Shawn Armstrong was just a tick below $4 million. I think if the money's right, if he gets somewhere around the $2.3 million range, I say bring him back because I think that's decent value. I think the Rangers would be getting a good deal on that if you can get him for 4.3. I think he had just a couple of bad outings that really skewed the perception of how good he was overall last year and in years past. I think this is a guy that is overlooked because he doesn't throw 98 miles an hour, but this is an effective reliever. It is not a guy who I want in the closer's role, but I think he wants to come back. I think the Rangers would bring him back for the right dollar price. And I'd say, yes, bring Danny Coulombe back. Now, the last couple of guys are even, actually, well, Phil Maton's not older, but I have a guy who is even older and a guy who is even more used than Shawn Armstrong. We'll talk about them right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. They got all kinds of different lines, and I was looking at some of these lines for postseason baseball. They've got lines on Shane Bieber to pitch in immaculate inning. They've got Tyler Glasnow to throw a no-hitter through 5 innings, to throw a no-hitter in general. 3+ strikeouts in the first inning, 3 up, 3 down in the first inning, 6 up, 6 down to start the game. They've also got prop bets on the first pitch velocity. I think that's fascinating. George Kirby right now, 99 miles an hour or faster, is at plus 1200. The favorite is 96.9 miles an hour or slower. That is plus 155. And with how many sliders those Mariners are throwing, that might end up being the winning wager. So go check out all the action at FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Shout out to everyone who's making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On Friday show, we'll be back and talking about Marcus Semien, what to make of his season and his first season dealing with injuries in at least as a member of the Texas Rangers, if not since the beginning of time. Mr. Iron Man starting to show some signs of wear and tear. I'll talk about that and more on Friday's episode of Locked On Rangers. Now let's get to the next guy on this list of internal free agents. We're talking about Phil Maton, a guy who had some very good moments, some very, very, very bad moments with the Texas Rangers. Heck, I'll say basically just 2 games where things did not go right. But those things, they really did not go right. It was back-to-back outings, one of them against Arizona, one of them against Toronto, and that kind of started the start of the end. And then the Rangers ended up coming back and looking better. And he was better in those outings. But overall, it was not the most successful tenure for Phil Maton in a Texas Rangers uniform. Now, he had a 3.5 ERA. Granted, 4 of the 9 runs that he gave up came in that horrendous outing against the Diamondbacks. That, yeah, Phil Maton is squarely to blame for the loss in that one. And you give up multiple home runs, when you give up a 3-run homer and then give up a solo shot immediately after, that L's on you. That L's on you when you give up 4 runs in the 9th inning. That's on him for sure. But overall, Phil Maton had a very, very good season. You look at his baseball savant page, and that thing is just full of the most red. I mean, expected ERA below 3, expected batting average below 200. The average exit velo was in the top 1% of baseball. The whiff rate, the barrel rate, the hard hit rate, all those in the top 2% of baseball. Strikeout rate in the top 5%. I mean, he's striking out a lot of guys, and the only blue that you see on that page is, well, his fastball velocity. It's not fast. It is, fast-ish ball velocity. He has 2 fastballs, a cutter at 90.6 miles an hour, and then a sinker that is somehow slower than his cutter at 89.6 miles per hour. But with him, it is all about the curveball. It's all about the curveball, the sweeper, the cutter. And he was excellent last year. He's going to be heading into his age 33 season next year. And overall, a 2.79 ERA, 61 and a third innings, 81 strikeouts, 11.9 Ks per nine for the full season. That is a great amount. About 3.5 walks per nine. Limited the home run ball. Better with the Cardinals than he did with the Rangers. Only gave up 2 home runs in 23 games with the Rangers, but he was the Rangers closer down the stretch. And outside of those 2 games, he was mostly pretty good for this Texas Rangers squad. The good is that he gets a lot of strikeouts, get a lot of soft contact. The bad is that he don't throw hard. He don't throw that hard, but he has found ways to be effective for years. He has been a really, really consistent reliever, which is a difficult thing to find. But the Rangers got a lot out of him outside of those 2 really bad outings. He has expressed interest in coming back to the Rangers, and I think that the Rangers want to bring him back. I mean, this is a guy who was very effective. The thing that they need more, not more than premium velo, is just swing and miss. They didn't have a whole lot of that in their pen, and heck, even on their team last year. And Phil Maton strikes out a lot of guys. He does walk quite a few. I don't love that in a closer. It makes me nervous, especially when you throw 89, 88, 90 miles an hour. You top out at like 92, 93. I don't even know if he hit 93 with the Rangers. And it makes me nervous. There's a lot less room for error, especially if you're able to limit the home runs in the way that he did overall last year. It's fine. You can survive with it. But he is susceptible to the occasional blow up outing, as is, every reliever. But in terms of if I want him back, I think, yes, I think this is the strongest yes outside of Shawn Armstrong. I think Shawn Armstrong is the guy who I want back the most. But Maton, he made $6.5 million last year. He's projected for his market value of being at $7.1 million next year. I think that's a totally reasonable price. And if Phil Maton is your closer next year, I think that's fine. I think that's good. I think I am okay with that, because even though he doesn't have premium velocity, he's got swing and miss stuff. And that, more than anything, is kind of what you need out of a closer. He only had 3 saves last year with the Rangers, 5 in total, and 10 for his career. So half of his career saves came last year, 3 of them with Texas, 2 of them with St. Louis. But I trust him in those leverage spots. I think I would rather have somebody a little bit different as the Rangers closer, but a lot of their free agent budget is going to go, actually, basically all their free agent budget is going to go to pitchers. Maybe they'll sign one backup catcher if they just kick Jonah Heim to the curb, but I would love Phil Maton back. Now, we've got 2 guys left on this list. I'm going to breeze through pretty quickly. We have Hoby Milner, the next guy on this list, who's 35 years old. And the tale of Hoby Milner is an odd one. He finishes the year with a 3.8 ERA, which was not really what he was up to for the majority of this season. The story of Hoby Milner can be told in his first half stats versus his second half stats. Heck, it's basically all of his appearances until the end of this year. Hoby Milner was ridden into the ground. He was Bruce Bochy's guy. He was Bruce Bochy's favorite. The lefty who was basically rubber armed, bounced back pretty quickly and was able to be used quite a bit. And Bruce Bochy said, "Oh, you can be used quite a bit. You can bounce back after throwing, multiple innings. Bet. We are going to do that, and we are going to do that frequently." But for the first half, he was fantastic for this Texas Ranger team. 46 innings, 44 appearances, to a 2.35 ERA in that first half, and 40 strikeouts, 7.8 Ks per nine. Not great strikeout numbers, but when you're throwing 88, topping out at 90, I don't know if he hit 91 miles an hour this year. That feels a little bit generous, but the man is a ground ball machine. He is a soft contact machine. He is just one of the weirder delivering pitchers out there in this game. He's going to be 35 next year. The good is he can pitch a lot. He pitched 70 and a third innings this year, which I believe was a career high. It was more than he pitched in the last 2 years. Yes, this was by far a career high, a little bit shy of 6 innings more than his career best of 64.2 innings, both in 2024 and in 2022 with the Milwaukee Brewers. He is a Dallas native, went to, or I guess DFW native, went to Robert L. Pascal High School in Fort Worth, went to the University of Texas in Austin, a homegrown Texas boy for sure, born in Dallas, went to high school in Fort Worth. He is a local boy, and do the Rangers want him back? I would imagine yes. I mean, the overall numbers were not great, but I mean, you look at what happened in the month, basically the back half of August. I mean, heading into where was the outing that really kind of sold it? Yeah, it was in Toronto on August 17th. That's kind of where it felt like, okay, this is a guy who's done. This is a guy who is fatigued. This is a guy who just has a lot on his plate. A lot has been asked of him, and he just does not have much more left to give. But heading into that appearance on August 17th in Toronto, he had a 2.15 ERA, and then he just gets absolutely lit up in Toronto. He had a 3.55 ERA in the month of August. It was much higher after that. And then in the month of September, 11 games, a 12.91 ERA, because there were a lot of appearances where he would just come in and not be able to get a runner out, get one out, maybe two outs, and then would not be able to finish off the inning and would just be pulled immediately. Like that game against where did we go? There was a game against Miami that he got one out and gave up multiple runs. There was a game against Minnesota where he came in and let three batters on immediately and was pulled. There was another game that he did that against Cleveland where he came in, faced three batters, and then immediately got pulled. It was a rough end of the season for Hoby Milner, but overall a good year. Do the Rangers want him back? I think probably yes. Does he want to come back? I think probably yes. All of these land on me saying probably for the right price right now. Phil Maton or Hoby Milner is projected to make $3 or $4 million next year. He made $2.5 million this year. I think $4 million is a fair increase, but I think somebody else is probably going to be more willing to pay him $4 million or maybe even more than $4 million after seeing what he did this year. Because overall, the body work looks great. The numbers at the end were tainted by a really tough finish after being overworked all season long. Now, the last guy on this list is Chris Martin, heading into what might be his age 40 season, what might be his retirement. That's kind of where we are with Chris Martin. Overall, he was pretty effective for the Rangers. 49 games, 42 and a third innings, 43 strikeouts, more than a K per nine, about a homer and a half-ish per nine, a little bit less than that, and less than 2 walks per nine. He was good. He was overall good this year. He was just hurt, and this seemed like it was going to be his last hurrah, but after missing, multiple different stints on the IL with a calf strain that really kept him out at a crucial stretch for the Rangers, really could have used that one more leverage lever. Might have turned around how the season went at the back end of August and early September, but who knows? Who knows how things go differently if Chris Martin does not injure his calf in that game at home and then exit and spend 6 weeks on the IL. Maybe things go a little bit differently. Maybe this entire season goes a little bit differently. But the good is he had velocity of these back end guys. He had about the most velocity of pretty much any of them. The bad, he old. He old. I don't know if he wants to come back. I don't know if he wants to come back to Major League Baseball in general. This was kind of seen as his not outspoken. I don't think he ever said it out loud, but it was very strongly hinted that Chris Martin was going to retire after this year. He made $5.5 million last year. If he does come back to Major League Baseball and try and finish out on a healthy note, his market value is listed at 6.7, about $6.8 million next year. I think the Rangers would love to have him back. If they can get him on a $5.5 million deal, I know they would absolutely love to bring him back, but it's just a matter of, is he ready to retire off into the sunset, or does he want one last shot at redemption and maybe a chance at a World Series ring with his hometown team? That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.